In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 132 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is teamwork. Our quote of the day comes to us from John C. Maxwell. The truth is that teamwork is at the heart of great achievement. Today's episode is sponsored by the good people over at West Fair Communications, who publish the Westchester County Business Journal and the Fairfield County Business Journal. These newspapers do a wonderful job in covering all aspects of the business world within two of the most influential markets in the New York metropolitan area. You can also take advantage of their daily news feeds, which keep track on the companies and thought leaders in these important regions. For more information, take a look at www.westfaironline.com. Trust me, once you start reading, you won't quit. I am very excited to bring you today's episode. Our guest is someone that I've had the opportunity of calling both a friend as well as a mentor. She is a very successful head women's college basketball coach, and Jessica Mannetti happens to be an even better person. She opens up today about some pretty raw personal stories, and she is currently leading her college basketball team both on and off the court. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Jessica, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here today.
So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
I am ready to bring it today.
So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you had either a story of perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that really tested you and you had the choice of giving up or giving in, but you didn't.
I actually do have a great story. When I started college coaching back in 2009, I was challenged in a lot of different ways from my transition from a high school to a college coach. And I was really struggling with that transition. There were a lot of different areas I wasn't prepared for. There were just a lot of different things that I wasn't ready for. And I remember after the first year, I really wanted to give up and just quit. And I would call home, I would tell my parents how unhappy I was. And I just thought to myself, I made the wrong choice. This wasn't for me. And my colleague, Faisal Khan, sat me down. He was also an assistant coach at the time. And he said, listen, you made this choice and you have to live with the choice you made. But if you quit, you are going to regret it for the rest of your life. You have to give this profession 5 years. If you can be dedicated to give this profession 5 years, to commit to learning, to growing, to challenging yourself, to really trying to figure out once you kind of get the ball rolling, if this is for you, he's like, I think you could be great. And so I really thought about it, and I went home for a long weekend, and I came back with a new mindset. And I said, you know what, he's right. If I give up on this, I'm going to quit at everything for the rest of my life. And I've never quit before. I am definitely strong enough to do this. I really think I can motivate myself to get through these hard times. And coincidentally, 5 years later, when I lost my dad, that was another time that I really thought I was just going to give it up. In those moments, you really start to think in your life, what's really important? And I loved my job, but I thought, I just don't think this is going to be for me. And 2 weeks after that, I was interviewed at Sacred Heart for a head coaching position. I took a chance. I listened to my mother tell me not to give up. After losing my dad, she said he would be so upset if you didn't try. And on Father's Day, a month after he passed, I was offered the position, and two people telling me not to give up when I was really at low points have given me the opportunity to be a head coach today. And I'm so grateful for it every single day.
You know, the interesting thing about the people we bring on the show is they have those people in their lives that are their encouragers. And obviously you give two specific examples, and it's important in life that whatever you're doing, business, life, sports, could be your professional career, even college decisions, is so many of us have that person or those people that were there for us when we said, you know what, I'm about to throw in the towel and I'm really not don't think I can do it. So I'm glad that you had those two. But just to take a step back, if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners just a teeny bit about who you are as far as your background and what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I am currently the head women's basketball coach at Sacred Heart University. And I got my start in coaching when I was 15 at a local high school camp. And I just knew it's what I wanted to be when I grew up one day, whenever that happens. And so after knowing what my goal was as far as my job went, I went through the different channels. I wanted to be a men's coach on the men's side. So I got involved with 5-star basketball and got exposure on the elite boys high school basketball side for a couple of years and was able to pick up a job at a local private school. I know it's a rival of your old school that you coached at Greens Farms Academy, and was a high school coach at the varsity level for 6 years, made the jump to college in 2009 and have been here ever since. So it's been a really fun journey.
And you haven't looked back.
I haven't looked back.
And that's a perspective of coaching, is people take different leaps from a head to an assistant from different, obviously, levels. And I started in college and then ended up in high school. So it's interesting when you talk to different people about the way they go. I want to ask you a different question. How do you personally define success?
Oh, I feel like there's a lot of answers to that. I think success on a personal level is being the best you are capable of being. It's not being successful by someone else's standard. It's being successful by your standard and what you hold yourself accountable for and what's really important to you. And I think that we try to preach that, especially in our program here. I don't want you to be as good as this player on this other team. I want you to be your best self you're capable of being, stepping out of your comfort zone, knowing you left it all on the floor and how you challenge yourself every day. And I think that you can utilize that philosophy on and off the basketball court.
No, I think that's a really good definition. And want to just change lanes here for a second. When you and I met a couple of years ago, we connected on books and different things in regards to personal development, leadership type things. And before we went live here in your office, we were talking about some of the initiatives you're doing within the entire athletic department here. But I wanted to ask you to tell our listeners a little bit about what you do during the season, because I think it's really unique. So when you and I first met, you were talking to me about how you pick 2 books a year, one in the beginning part of the season and one in the second. And I was curious, I guess a couple of questions is how that started, where did you get it from? And then more importantly, how do you feel it's really helped your program? Because I can just tell you from the outside, watching your program, you definitely have that connection in the culture.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the book piece was something we implemented when I first got here. And when I was an assistant coach at Hofstra, my head coach at the time, Krista, really empowered me to do a lot of different leadership activities with the team. And so we started reading a book or two or an article or so when I was there. And when I came here, I thought to myself, okay, if this is my baby, if this is a culture that I really want to create here in the program, I want us to always be able to read and look at things from a different perspective, really learn about who we are and what we want to stand for, and really empower the players to have a lot of input in terms of forming our culture. And so we read 2 books a year. We read one in the summer, and we read a book over the winter break. And we started with John Gordon, I think, taking over a program. We began with The Energy Bus, which was an amazing book, and it really identified energy on our team, the energy vampires. Are you a George? Are you a Joy? They have an activity book that they fill out. We have a book club at the end of the summer and a book club at the end of the winter season to talk about our books. So John Gordon really has inspired us. We went on since then to read other books. We most recently read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which is really interesting and really broke down the different components of a team so people can relate to the different characters in all different ways. But I really do think that it has empowered the players to understand, hey, this is our culture. This is who we are. We want to speak openly and candidly about our perspective. The way I read a book is going to be really different than what you might read in a book. And so having that open discussion, I think, really allows us to have great communication, which is obviously the foundation for everything to be successful moving forward.
The word that you've mentioned, I think 3 or 4 times already, is empower. And I think that's such a powerful word, because when you're in a team or on a team, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a team at work, whether it's a family team, you define that. I think the most successful teams, everybody feels that they play a part. And I think when you empower your players, your fellow staff, they realize that they play a role. And it might not be the 20-point score. It might be 11th or 12th man on the team. But I think it's really interesting. So I wanted to ask you in regards to a book, of the books you've done, the books you've had with your program, or even when you're at Hofstra, do you have an all-time favorite when it comes to, I guess, the coaching perspective?
The most favorite book I can think of off the top of my head is The Hard Hat by John Gordon. It was one of these books that I watched transform our season and transform our team. It was like one of the most incredible, most impactful moments that I saw as a coach, watching a team transition from a really low place to an incredibly high place. And it was so ironic during our 2016 season where we were 2-9 entering non-conference or finishing non-conference. We were in a really low point. I mean, we were getting blown out by like 30 points entering into conference season. And I thought to myself, how are we going to turn this around? We have unbelievable talent. We have a great group of kids. We just can't get it together. And so we read The Hard Hat over the winter break. And ironically, there were 18 games that were in our conference season. And there were 21 ways to be a great teammate that were listed in that book. And so if you take the 18 conference games and then you take quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, that's 21 different components that you can apply to different games. So we made this big sheet. We took one of the 21 components and applied it to each game that we had left. That was our game theme for each game. And I just watched them really buy in. I watched them address and communicate to each other some of the really tough stuff that they had been going through with team dynamic. And, we talk about empowerment. They really felt confident that they could fix it. They could move forward with it. They could run with it. And they did. It was like magic. We were 16-2. We just ran the gamut of conference play. We ended up falling 5 points short in the championship, but it was unbelievable. And so that book, I think, had the biggest impact that I've ever seen a book have to a program. And I don't think they'll attribute it to that, but I certainly do.
No, and since you're doing the interview, that's all that counts is what you think. So in such a cutthroat business, and being a former high school and college coach myself, when you literally are judged on wins and losses, and unfortunately you don't see a lot of the other stuff, I was curious, has there been one lesson or one example that you can point to, a learning perspective, where you said, you know what, this has been a really important part in my career? Or are there just numerous ones throughout your career you've seen?
So I think this year was a really special year for me to grow, because I had a really good run for 4 years with really powerful players. And I was blessed to have a player of the year and a lot of success with a core group of kids constantly returning. This year I had 6 freshmen, and I was really challenged in ways I wasn't expecting. And we went through some crazy things this year. And one of the most powerful things that I've ever been a part of as far as coaching is having a player lose a family member during the season. And I remember thinking to myself, coaching in this moment, my response to this is about so much more than just coaching. It is about the human part of how we treat each other, how we really believe we're a family, how we really have to come together right now. And so being able to go through something like that with the team, and a young team that had 6 freshmen and 3 sophomores, and really didn't gel at that point. It was really early in our journey. I think it was September, October. It was really eye-opening to see the human perspective from a coaching standpoint. And then obviously going through the season was challenging too, but I think I learned a lot knowing that I probably wasn't going to have a record over 500 this year. And my response as a coach to those failures in conference was probably the most important lesson that I learned as well. So I recall we were 2-6 at the end of January. And I said to myself, we are not going to win another game. I'm not ordering playoff t-shirts. We're going to be the first team in the history of the program to not make the tournament. Like, I really was down. I think the team felt I was down. And we were trying to just figure it out. And my response, I remember we played, and the 2 games we had just lost, I was frustrated. But I said to them in my response to those failures, I can't even be disappointed. You played your butts off. They were really close losses. This is better than we've ever played. I'm super frustrated. I know you're frustrated too, but like, I can only be happy with your effort. And I thought it was tremendous effort. And I know it's not the outcome, but it'll be okay. And then we went bowling. We went bowling as the next practice. I surprised them and we went bowling. And I realized in that moment that my response to those failures and to show them that I was still proud of them and loved them and cared about them, regardless of the win-loss, well, we finished 7-1 in February to turn the season around. Went from 9th place to 3rd place as a finish. So I think when you ask me about these impactful moments and things that I learn about coaching, like going through a loss and seeing how a team from a human perspective can really love and support each other is so powerful. And then my response to things, whereas I don't think it might have a big effect, has a huge impact on how they feel and they believe moving forward.
You know, you touched on something with the human perspective and the tough times and the losses. And I think it's such a parallel from sports to life is you get tested in those tough times. And I think one of the things we often touch on during our podcast is the failures. And it doesn't make you a failure if you fail. You're only a failure if you give up and you quit, which is why obviously our company is No Quit Living. And I think you took a real tough loss and you made a positive out of it. But I think the other neat perspective is you also didn't focus at that point on the wins and losses. Yes, internally, being a coach and being a competitive person, you want to win, but you kind of flipped the script and said, okay, we're not going to focus on the playoff t-shirts. And you ended up being 7-1. And I know watching you guys last year, looking at your scores and things, you did have a good 7-1 run. And you flipped a couple of years ago when you talked about being 2-9 and then finishing 16-2. That's the best part about sports and life and even business in general is it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And obviously you want to always start and be undefeated, but that's just not life and that's not sports. So we're going to change lanes for a second. I wanted to ask you a different question. If you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's always such a hard question. I initially want to say my dad, just because it would be so great to pick his brain, see how proud he would be of the things that we do here. Sorry, I don't mean to get a little emotional. But as far as like a celebrity goes, I have this really crazy obsession with Marilyn Monroe. And I know that she's pretty controversial, but I just loved what she was about. And I loved what I don't know if she stood for things that were great, but I thought she was herself. And I thought that the downfall of her was obviously trying to be everything that everybody else wanted her to be. But if you really read about her and see her interviews, she was like the most incredible person and woman, far ahead of her time. And so it would be really awesome to have dinner with her.
Well, how about dinner with your dad and Marilyn Monroe?
Oh, he would like that more than I would.
So if you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself only one piece of advice, now assuming the 20-year-old version would listen, what one piece of advice would you give the 20-year-old Jessica?
Wow. I think it would, obviously, we talk about not quitting and never giving up. But I think it would be having a mindset that, yes, you can. You always can. You find a way. And I think that's something that I've grown to really live by. In your 20s, you figure out who you are, and there's a lot of impact on your confidence. There's a lot of people telling you no. And I think if I was 20, I'd go back and say, hey, people are going to tell you no. You just have to show them yes. And I think that's a really important transformational moment that you could have in your life when you realize no is just a starting point. Like, you still could get what you want.
No, I like that. And knowing you as I do, I definitely agree. That's definitely who you are. And I think that says a lot about who you are as a coach as well, because it's, you take that no or you take that loss and you turn it into your next big victory. So wanted to ask you a question. We talk about quite a bit accountability with our company, our speaking events, and on our podcast. I wanted to ask you, what does the word accountability mean to you?
Well, I mean, I guess accountability would just be doing what you say you're going to do when and how you say you're going to do it, and having an action rather than words. I think accountability is action. I think it's the ability to be dependable and counted on and responsible. And you take pride in that. You want people to depend on you. You want people to know that your word means your action will follow. So maybe holding yourself to that high standard all the time is what accountability would be.
That's awesome. And we haven't spoken about this, but we have, when we do a lot of our speaking, the 3 A's of accountability, which are action, application, and attitude. And I get asked quite often when I'm speaking, if I had to pick only one of those 3, what would it be? And I say, hands down, it's always action. Is obviously attitude is important and application is important. But if you don't have the right action, it doesn't matter if you've got the best attitude in the world, you still have to put it into place. So I appreciate that you touched on that. And then one of the things we're doing is we're doing an initiative of paying it forward. And it's something that I've found to be really interesting because I've had people that are sharing stories with me, whether it's on Instagram, on my Facebook page, and even just in general. And I wanted to ask you, what is the concept of or what does the theme pay it forward mean to you?
So we talk about this a lot in our program, and we talk about being able to impact someone's life in the way that they impacted yours. So when we tell our players it's your job to pay it forward when you graduate, it's you need to be a person that somebody can depend on to learn about, to be an example of what our culture stands for, what our family atmosphere is truly about. Like, it's your job now. You've reaped the benefits of somebody that paved the way for you. Now it's your turn to pave the way for them and leave that place better than you found it. And so I think paying it forward is something that if everybody lived by that, we'd have a lot better atmosphere in our society. But I know a lot of people try. They really try to live their life in a pay it forward kind of way. And it's to be grateful too. Paying it forward is to show gratitude to others who did that for you.
Now, it's interesting that you reference that because that's a word we talk about almost on every episode is gratitude and being grateful. And I think you hit it on the head is paying it forward is something that's simple. And I think a lot of people overemphasize the monetary piece or doing a huge and monumental pay it forward concept or idea. And I think obviously those are great and they're impactful and they're amazing, but it's also the little things every day. And I think to you, as you lead your program, when your girls graduate, if each of them pays it forward to somebody else, that person's then going to pay it forward. So I think one of the things we reference is the compound effect of doing something the right way. So I know you have some exciting things going on this summer with your program, and then just wanted to ask if you have anything else exciting going on and kind of what you're looking forward to heading into next season.
Yeah, so we have a foreign tour to Argentina in August. We are so excited about it. We have had tremendous support from Bobby Valentine in our athletic program and our trustee, Pablo, who is actually Pablo Stallman. He's from Argentina, and he's doing a big initiative to have South Americans, specifically Argentinians, come enroll at Sacred Heart. And so we get to be a really positive, really incredible presence in Argentina for 12 days. And our players get to have this unbelievable life experience once in a lifetime. Down in a different country, they get to see the different cultural aspects of it. They get to see, we're going to learn how to tango. We're going to go to a ranchero. We're going to go on a cruise to Uruguay. We're going to do so many cool things. So I'm excited that they get this opportunity because I think that, you talk about gratitude. It's eye-opening to them to realize how good they have it here when they get to go other places. And whether that's some sort of local community service or it's to a completely different country, I don't think that our players really get to truly understand how good they have it until they can go really immerse themselves in another culture and see, hey, United States has got it pretty good in America. We are pretty what am I looking for here? Fortunate. Thank you. We were pretty fortunate to have what we have. So we're going to Argentina. We're very excited about that. And then another thing I'm really excited about is that our team returns everybody. So this is going to be a really fun year with 6 sophomores and I think only 4 seniors to really, see where we can take it to the next level and really come together. They were excited and hungry last year at the end of the season, bummed that it was over, but hungry just because of how we finished. So I think they're coming back with a really, really exciting mindset.
No, that sounds like an amazing trip, and I'm really glad that you invited me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait to see you there.
So last question I want to ask you before we wrap up is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
The parting words that I always end with are our mantra here, and it's find a way. Our players talk about what we stand for. And if you ask any of them, they're going to tell you, oh my gosh, Coach Mannetti preaches find a way. We go over, under, around, and through, but we find a way. We never, ever, ever, ever give up. We never quit. We always find a way, because so many people tell you no all the time. The world is filled with no's. It's filled with negativity. It's filled with people who want to see you fail. And the only way to rise above that is to constantly find a way and show them yes. Not tell them yes, show them yes. And I think those are amazing rules to live by.
I like that. Don't tell them yes, show it to them. I like that. And that comes back to the action component. So for our listeners that would like to either follow you, whether it's social media or your team as well, what's the best way for them to do that, and how can they do that?
Oh, they can jump right onto our Sacred Heart website on sacredheartpioneers.com. And if they click on our women's basketball link, it has all of our social media accounts. It has all of our Instagram pages and our upcoming schedule. Come see us play. We'd love to have you in the stands cheering us on. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. My email is also right on the website, so we'd love to talk with you.
Awesome, Jess. I really appreciate you being a guest on the show, and I definitely look forward to checking you guys out next year.
Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. You do such an incredible job, so thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to episode number 132. Jessica is an incredible person, both on and off the court. In such a cutthroat field, sometimes college coaches are only judged on their wins and losses. Jessica, on the other hand, connects with her players, cares about them, and clearly wants them to be successful human beings well after their college playing days are over. She shared with us how at two different times in her life, there were two very important people that have a positive impact on her because they truly believed in her. It goes hand in hand with what we often discuss, the importance of having the right people in your corner and on your bus. Jessica is also a big believer in personal development, and I think it is very unique how she encourages and empowers her players and staff as they read books together throughout the season. Jessica defined accountability as action, and I couldn't agree more. Near the end of the episode, Jessica spoke about mindset and how the world is filled with no's, and how she believes and preaches the concept and idea of yes, you can. Just find a way. In conclusion, what is it that you want to accomplish or do with either your life or your career? Why haven't you done it? Has someone told you no? Has someone expressed to you how difficult or challenging it might be? If there is something you want to do, something you want to accomplish, or someone you want to meet or be with, don't take no for an answer. Find a way. Go through, under, around, over, and find a way, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.